here's kind of a checklist that I will kind of go through, a process of elimination, if you will, to tell me, okay, does this trade fit within my specs, right? And the first thing I want to know is, what is the major trend, right? Are we currently in an uptrend, or are we currently in like long-term uptrend or downtrend, right? And then you also have sideways and ranging. And if you're sideways and ranging, it can be really hard to tell which way you're going to go. So a lot of times I like to wait until I can identify that I am in an uptrend or I am in a downtrend, right? Same thing with the minor trend, and we'll go over what do you mean major and minor. Major may be over the past 2 weeks per se, and minor be over the past couple days, right? So that's what I kind of mean. And again, you determine if you're up, down, sideways, or ranging. We touched on the EMAs just a little bit, the estimating moving averages and those lines. And we'll look at charts, and I'll get deeper into them. And I'll even, I'll do a write-up to post with this that shows kind of some screenshots of charts to see what we're talking about too in the future. But are the candles, is the price above or below the EMA, right? And then we have 2 EMA lines most of the time, and it depends. You know, you'll hear people say the 50 and the 200 or the 50-day and this. Well, it all depends what time frame you're on, which EMA you're actually looking at. So for simplicity, we're going to keep it as there's a shorter term EMA, which stays kind of right in the middle of price range. And there's a longer term EMA that doesn't react quite as quickly. And that is the same for every chart, whether it be a 50, a 200, a 20, whatever it be. You're going to have the shorter term that kind of follows the median of price action, and then you're going to have the one that doesn't follow as fast. So the thing you want to note is, when it comes to the EMAs, is the price above or below the EMA? And then, is the short-term EMA above or below the long-term EMA? And then we've talked about the RSI many times, the FOMO meter. Is price above or below neutral, right? And again, then you got to take note, like, has it topped out, right? So again, what am I looking at, and how do I want to think about this? If I'm in an uptrend, right? Let's just look at one side. If I'm in an uptrend, and even in my minor, price looks like it's going up, the candles are printing up above the EMA. The short term is above the long term. And the RSI is above neutral, but it's not topped out. Man, we got some fucking steam to be going long. That tells me that we have momentum. We are in an uptrend. We are still moving in current price action. The EMAs are printing above the average, estimated moving average, right? So we're printing above the average. The short term is above the long term, and the RSI is above neutral, meaning we're fucking moving, right? All this tells me this may be a time for me to look at going long, right? Now, conversely, we're in a downtrend. Short-term price action, things are going down. We're below the estimated moving average, right? The short term is below the long term, right? And we're below neutral. We don't have steam. We're not moving. We can continue down. And then that's when we start to use our indicators to see if we can determine a reversal anywhere or an indicator that price action may be changing. But we've talked about, the first thing we talked about was the major trend. right? So if we look, our kind of major trend is going down. And I wish I could get rid of these, whatever these numbers are, because that would be easier. There we go. Okay. So our overall trend is kind of a downtrend, correct? We can kind of agree on that. So that's the first major thing to take into consideration. The second major thing to take into consideration is what's your short-term trend? Well, a kind of shorter term trend is going down also, isn't it? Right? Well, the fact that we've got kind of prices below our trend, prices below our trend. This white RSI is the median. You can see it follows price action faster than the blue. So our candles are printing below the EMA, and our short-term EMA is below the long-term EMA. And the RSI is pretty much topped out, which says it's running out of steam. So the fact we're below our long-term, below our short-term, printing candles below our short-term EMA, and the fact that our short-term EMA is below the long-term, and we could be running out of steam here, this doesn't look like a time I want to go long. We don't have upward momentum. Now, what we can do is wait for price to maybe break and find that higher low. You know, we always talk about the higher low and higher highs. And when we start getting higher lows and higher highs, then we'd probably see that's when we would probably see our EMAs start to come up and eventually cross, you know, the longer term and start that more bullish momentum. So let's go back on the chart and look at a spot that kind of has that. So we get an idea of what we're talking about. But does that make sense so far of, you know, you look at the long term, price is below it. And you can look at kind of since we started this downtrend, right? You can see the EMA is finding resistance and not breaking above. You can see price is finding resistance and not breaking above. You can see most of the candles are printing down below it, right? All this kind of tells you that the trend is your friend until the end. So, yeah, maybe you're here and you didn't get in the trend in the beginning. You're like, oh, well, I kind of missed where it started going down. The trend is your friend till the end. The trend is still going. The trend right now is still going, right? So, but let's go back and look at, I'm going to have to go to a shorter time frame chart. It really doesn't matter what time frame chart we're on. The RSIs and everything kind of work the same. Maybe do one. Okay, so go ahead.
I have a question. What does RSI mean, and how do we know which indicator is the best for us? Yeah.
So the RSI, you can think of the RSI almost as a FOMO meter. I'm trying to find the one there it is. Fine. Relative Strength Index. It's called Relative Strength Index. The one that we always use. Relative Strength Index. So I'm going to get rid of these other fuckers. And that's what RSI means. But so what we look at the RSI is kind of a FOMO meter. and I have talked about this before, and we'll talk about it a little more right now while I'm changing some of these colors. But think of it as a FOMO meter. It kind of lets you know how price action is moving in strength. Do we have bullish strength, or is it looking kind of bearish? And I'll show you how we can kind of tell that, right? So down here is our RSI. Up top, let me make these lines just a little thicker. It's probably hard for you guys to see on stream. Make that a little thicker.
So while Mode's doing that, I can give you my interpretation of RSI. You know, it's essentially like a momentum indicator. It's going to give you a depiction of how the price is really changing on a scale of 1 to 100. It can give you like strong buy or strong sells. And like what Mode keeps referring to is like a FOMO meter. When you're using the RSI and it gets topped out into those upper ranges, you know, that's like a really good indication of FOMO, maybe overbought, you know, things of that nature. And to the same degree, when it's lower,
See, it's
you know, those are
spiking the
opportunities
tops
to
right
get.
here, like Andy's talking about. It's spiking up above the red line. So
Yeah, so it gives
indication
you,
the top could be coming.
yeah, like a momentum indicator. Is the momentum keeping up? Is it slowing down? And it's like a good, I'd say, sentiment touch on what the market is doing. Oh, do you think that's pretty good?
Yes, exactly. And that's why I kind of say it's a FOMO meter. And you can see here we're getting all the way. And the reason I have this green is because when I start seeing price getting down below here, this is when I want to start consider buying. When I see price getting up above here, I actually set them just a little higher. I like to set that at 75 and lower this to 25, just personal settings. But when I see that I'm getting below here, I think, okay, I want to be looking, maybe this is a time to get ready to buy, right? So the way I think of it and like to explain it is, let's think of this middle line as neutral, right? If you're below neutral, you're not really moving. You're not really doing shit. But if you get all the way down here, you're fully recharged and kind of ready to go, right? And let's go to the 4 hour, just because that's what we usually trade on. We'll look at this on a soul chart real quick for the RSI. What I often say is, think about a car, right? And if you're down here, you're getting charged up, ready to go. But if you get up here and you're redlining your vehicle, you need to fucking relax a little bit and take a chill. And what happens once it started topping out here? It came down and eventually came back down pretty low and actually got down below. And it's like, okay, now it's time to get moving again, right? And what do we see right now? We're getting down in this range. So it's time to start keeping an eye on when we start getting momentum again. But vice versa, once you get above neutral, right, and you kind of find support on it, right, you're in that upward momentum until what? Until we redline the fucking engine there and it needed to cool off some. So that's kind of how I look at it. Is this is a FOMO meter. If it's below neutral but not below the green, I kind of say, yeah, we're really not moving. We're kind of dead. Price is going down. If we're above neutral but not redlining the engine, hey, we're bullish. We're moving at a good pace. When I see we're redlining, okay, we're overpaced and we need to cool down. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm going to go back to that Matic chart just because there's not other shit drawn on it. And so, yeah, again, we can look at the RSI and say, here we started seeing it top out, start paying attention. And if we had our line drawn for our uptrend, you know, it would have been something. Oh, come on. I hate when this lags because I'm streaming and my lines jump everywhere. Would have been something kind of like that. Now, we are going to go into shorter term just to kind of identify what we were just talking about with that sheet of identifying kind of what momentum we're in and what we think we should do. So we can even start here. You know, we have a low, and right here we have a higher low. So we can even start our trend line off of 1, 2 is where our trend line can start, right there. So to me, okay, we just redlined. Now we found a higher low, right? Now we're moving up and price looks to be finding support on the EMA. Price looks to be finding support above neutral. And then what happened? When we found support here on neutral, we found support on the EMA, we pumped, and we got a cross. See where the white, the EMA, the short term breaks above? That's our first indication that this shorter term downtrend may be over. So again, we're looking for indicators that something may be happening, right? So we get, and so this to me is where I would look to potentially make entry. Why? Because we are holding a higher low. We are above this trend line. We're finding support coming back up above the EMAs, and we found bullish cross. So I would think about looking to go in here. And if I did, where is my... I would put my stop below the last low, right? Because I don't want to start making lower lows. Lower lows could mean I could go down. Now, where would I look to take profit? Probably on this initial resistance line that has been in play for however long, as you can see. So you can make this initial resistance line off of this point and this point alone. So that's where I would have been looking to take profits at. Also, right in this zone before we topped out, you know, so I would be looking to take profits right in there. I wouldn't have got maybe the full profit, but, you know, close enough. I would have taken that. 3-to-1 risk to reward. That's a good trade in my book. That's a safe trade. You know, finding we now have a higher low. We now have a higher high, right? So here's our high. So we have our low, a lower high compared to here. I'll draw it out. This might help if I draw it out. I hope I'm not losing you guys. I know I get a little fucking ADD and start going and whatever, but so if we consider this our high, right? Here's now our low. Well, this is a lower high. You know that. But we do have a higher low. This higher low is our first indicator that something might be changing. What's our second indicator? We now have a higher high, right? Our high is higher than this previous. Well, you don't want to FOMO in now. Look, your FOMO meter saying we're getting up here. We don't want to FOMO in now. When do we want to, what do we always say? The break and the retest. So if we get a retest that's still holding the higher low, that's a spot that I'm going to look to go in on. Because then what are we expecting? higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. Then what do we get here? A lower high. Then what do we get? Lower low. Now's an indication that we're going down. So we broke that, right? We've now broke this trend. It's been broken. Higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, lower high, lower low. So now what are we expecting?
You see it correspond with the RSI too.
Yep, exactly. You see where we start topping out? This is saying, hey, pay attention. Now the RSI isn't going to tell you what price is, but to me, when it's saying, hey, we're finding a support above neutral, we're kind of staying bullish. When we are bottoming out, this is where I want to think of this may be the new low, right? And then what do we get? The higher low from that. Perfect. Okay. When I see it starting to top out, right? And here it's starting to top out, but we still got the higher high. Okay. Now it's starting to top out and we got the lower high. That's the first indicator. Now we're getting the lower high and again, break and retest. And then where do we go? Lower high, or I'm sorry, lower lows, lower high, lower lows, lower high. And you see how the trend kind of continues, right? So, and again, what happens here when we get this lower high and we start to break here? We also get more candles printing below. We also get the cross. See, the white is now below and couldn't find support. It found resistance and is now moving below. I know this is a little more high level than using Thor, but I wanted to go over this with you guys because you guys that are coming in each and every week and asking questions, I can tell you guys are learning more and really interested in learning more. So these let me know, even simply knowing, am I above or below my main trend? Am I above or below the shorter term trend? Am I above or below the EMA? Am I in a bullish cross? That kind of lets me know, do I think this Thor signal is valid or is it headed toward that zone? Is it respecting my trends? And if it is, if Thor's calling for a short somewhere, and along, you may think, okay, that could potentially be just a higher high and then making low, or is that the higher high? Depends. Where does it call? Are you still respecting your trend? This trend would more so have been set, this initial line 1, 2 there. But after you get more bullish momentum, I would have connected my lows like this. And then after we got more bullish right there, I would have connected. Come on, quit jumping. I would have connected this low and this low. And that would be the trend I'm really respecting. So, even here, we found support and we started to pump, but then we found resistance and we didn't get the higher high, right? The fact we didn't get the higher high lets me know, okay, be careful. And sure enough, we got the higher low. If you want to look at it closer, you can even see where we broke, where we got the cross. We broke, retest. We found resistance on everything. The RSI found resistance on neutral. Price found resistance on our downtrend. Price found resistance on the EMAs. The EMA short term found resistance on the long term. So again, this might be a place I'm looking to make a short entry. and put my stop above my last high, which I probably would have considered that just because that's a crazy wick. I probably would have put it, above this high here. So I probably would have said somewhere like that. And then I'd be looking to retest probably level 1 or 2 of this. Probably right here where I found a bunch of price action. We found, resistance, then it became support. I probably would have been looking to take profit right in that range. And you can see we did have some action there. Good place to take profit because maybe it did want to go high. But what do we see? It ended up following the trend. And what happens? The trend is our friend until the end, right? So even if you took profits on your short, you can still get back in short if you're seeing the signals to do so, right? Any questions on this before we start going to charts and looking at Thor, and then we can get back into this. But I just wanted to give you guys something new this week for the guys that are here every week, and been paying attention and reviewing the charts of, the higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, how to make these trend lines. Using the EMAs is just another one of those indicators to show you those momentums. And when you compare, are you above or below your long term? Are you above or below your short term? Are you above or below printing candles on the short term? And you can always tell the short term because it stays tighter to price, right? Is your short term above or below your longer term? I make mine blue because I think of it, am I above or am I below water? I don't want to be in a long position and be underwater. It's just kind of the way my brain thinks about it. If I'm going underwater, I want to be short, right? Am I floating? Am I floating up or am I is price drowning below water? So that's the reason I have it blue. Just a personal thing.
I have a quick question. Sorry.
Fire away, bro.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. The first trade you have drawn in.
This one here.
Exactly. The entry. How do you know it's a higher low and will not become a lower low? Are you waiting basically for the first green candle or
Well, what
because
I saw is I have this trend line, right? That I could establish after this low and this low, and I can see when price wicks down to it, it tends to jump away, right? So now I see price wicking down and jumping away. I also see that we're getting kind of low down here, but we're not oversold. But here is where I start to notice. Now I'm finding I'm up above, right? The RSI is now above neutral. Price is starting to print kind of above candles, or we already got the bullish cross here and we're looking to kind of find support. So I don't know that we are, right?
Yeah.
What I know is right now we got a higher low and we have a higher high, and this looks to be a higher low. So what I know is if I make an entry, protect myself. Risk management and finding yourself on the right side of probability is profitable trading. That's the easiest way to sum up profitable trading. Risk management, having your stop loss, and that's why I would have had my stop loss down here at this last low, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to enter right here and then put it, say at that first candle or something. Fuck that up. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to put it at this first candle because what if we come down to here and find support? We could come all the way down to here, find support, and it'd still be a higher low, right? And if we get that higher low, what do I hope to then see? A higher high. And if at any point in my trade, I start to see lower lows or lower highs, or let's say price action broke right here and started to come down, I would think about closing my trade right here now at the first indication that that I might be going the wrong way if it doesn't hit my take profit. But so let me pull up this chart real quick and see. So this chart will show you where I would have made that entry without ever even looking at price or a candle. Without ever looking at a candle, without looking at an EMA, without looking at anything at all. Right here is where I was talking about making that entry. Now, how do I know that entry? Because we've got the higher high, right? We made the higher low. We've got the higher high compared to here. Now so that's the break. Now I want to look at entering on the retest. So same thing. There was the downtrend, right? We got the lower high. Okay, higher low. That's where I want to look to get in and ride up to the higher highs. So that's the same exact setup we literally just looked at without even looking at price action candles at all. Just by identifying those points of higher highs and higher lows. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Perfect. Anybody else got questions on this before we're going to jump in? And I'm really excited to look at the charts from last week, the past 2 weeks, and look at what Thor's calling now. Any questions before we move on from this?
When you say whenever the EMA meets resistance, that just means just like any other chart line that meets resistance, right?
Yeah. So you can see kind of the white line tries to break and get above, and it doesn't. It did break, but it can't find support on it and falls back in. Even here it tried. That's resistance, just like price. You know, price hits this, it's finding resistance. Finding resistance. Gotcha. Same thing as finding support. Finding support. Finding support, right?
Gotcha.